Hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar, Video Walls for Security Operations. My name is Julie Rolls, I'm the training specialist with PSA Security Network, and I'm going to be moderating today's call. I have just a few quick housekeeping items before I hand it over to Chris Whitley for an introduction for today's webinar. First, if you've not done so already, please mute yourself. If you have any questions throughout the course of this presentation, please type them into the chat panel and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of this presentation. If you happen to run into any technical difficulties, let us know in the chat box and we'll also do our best to get you up and running as soon as possible. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Whitley, COO for USAV.
Good afternoon and morning for some of you. My name is Chris Whitley, COO of USAV, a PSA company. We're excited to bring you this webinar today from one of our newest preferred vendor partners, Hyperwall. Hyperwall works real closely with NEC, a long-standing preferred partner with USAV, and this webinar is going to give you a little bit of a look at both companies. If you're doing any video work in security operations centers or want to, then you want to know more about Hyperwall and NEC. Hyperwall is a video wall solution for security operations centers that takes the complexity out of understanding and working with video walls. They've developed a truly unique technology that makes selling, installing, and using the system easy and cost-effective. While Hyperwall is new to USAV, and likely many of you, they're not newcomers to the industry. They have over 1,000 installs in 62 companies. We're excited about having them become a part of the USAV PSA community, and now I'd like to turn it over to Robert Cameron, the Manager of Global Business Development for Hyperwall. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Little housekeeping issue for me. Paul Redding with NEC will be co-presenting with me on a few slides, and he just texted me to say that he is muted and asked if he could be taken off of mute.
Guys, can you hear me? I think I just got taken off.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Good, good. All right. Thank you, Julie and Chris, and great introduction. And so what I'd like to do is to continue on that introduction is just very quickly, let me say this. Today is not a deep dive into video wall technologies and all the behind-the-scene engineering aspects of video walls and the software. Today is really an introduction to with a lot of information about video walls and applications and different types of technology out there. A lot about what USAV and NEC and Hyperwall are doing together in security operations centers, and et cetera. We are going to be doing a lot more training for a technical training as well as sales training in the next several weeks. So this is not the first and only. This is going to be the first of many. And so, you know, with that being said, I'd like to just kind of tell you a little bit about myself, only from for a perspective. You know, and the perspective is mainly I have a lot of experience in the AV industry, and I don't have a lot of experience in security. However, the last 12 years or so, I've spent a lot of time specializing in mission-critical environments. So the typical network operations center, command and control, security operations centers, etc. And so I've worked around the security market a lot to know enough about it to know, you know, what the requirements of these users are and how video walls, etc., interface with the type of technologies that are typically found in security operations centers. And, you know, so my experience, again, is with a variety of different video wall products, video wall management solutions, which is the software that runs the video walls. I've had a lot of experience from the aspect of designing the rooms, the console furniture that gets in there, working with the architects on new construction or the general contractors on renovation projects, et cetera, so they know all the infrastructure that needs to be laid out in there. And again, all the human factor and ergonomic issues that go around designing and laying out a very nicely thought through security operations center. So the reason I say this is from the perspective of knowing what my experience is. Yes, we're here to talk about video walls today, but I want you to know that there's subject matter expertise at NEC as well as at Hyperwall that could help you guys in other areas of the planning and development of how an SOC comes together. So really maybe a good place to start is I do quite a bit of research on different markets out there, and one of the reasons that Hyperwall and NEC are focusing on security is that if you look at some of the numbers, and there are a lot of different statistics out there, but generally speaking, the physical security job market is expected to grow 10.1% year over year for the next few years here, and maybe even beyond that. I couldn't find any stats that went beyond that, but also the spend in the physical security marketplace is it's expected to reach an all-time high, as well as continue to grow, and it continues to be one of the main concerns of the public. So, to me, it's a sorrowful thing, if you will. It's not a great thing here that we have to deal with this in life, but we have to, and so we are in a good place to help people with this type of technology that helps to mitigate a lot of the concerns in the security market. And so that being said, I'm a firm believer, and I see this every day when we're out there working with customers, is that what we did yesterday and how we did it isn't really necessarily good enough for today. And the technology is changing so fast. The requirements of what organizations need to ramp up their security, be it a national company or a global company, is just again rapidly changing. And I just did something to my screen here that hold on, let me get back on track here. And so what people are wanting today is faster decisions to be made. They need instant access to information, and we have become a society, not just in the Security Operations Center, but everything we do in our personal lives with smartphones and with tablets and laptops, and you go shopping, there's digital signage. Everybody, we think visually today. So video walls in command and control centers are becoming a requirement, not a luxury as they were years ago. And I remember a time when I used to have to talk to customers and explain the benefits of a video wall for them in their command center, whereas today I rarely have a conversation with a customer about why they need a video wall. They really just want to know what's the best solution out there, and why is it the best solution. So things have changed a lot, and I think that presents great opportunities for all of us. What's driving a lot of this growth is, honestly, again, we're a visual society today, and there are so many advances in networks and physical security products, cybersecurity, big data analytics, and you name it. And people want to see it on big screens or on their tablet, and they want to have access to all this stuff instantly so that they can make better decisions, make them faster, and mitigate risk, and regardless if it's a security ops center or a network ops center, command and control, traffic management center, it really doesn't matter. People need this type of technology. So that all being said, as a groundwork for kind of why this is all important to us in our industry, let me kind of tell you why we're here today. And to Chris's point, you're definitely here to learn a little bit about what is the USAV, PSA, and NEC Hyperwall relationship partnership that we're developing. Who is NEC and who is Hyperwall, and what does all this mean to you? Talk a little bit about some technologies for video wall and the management systems, and then I'd like to just kind of hit on some of the things that maybe some of you guys may not have been exposed to as it relates to when you want to spec a video wall, some of the secondary considerations that could affect the placement of that wall, or what type of wall you put in, so that you can recommend the right solutions to your customers. And so I'll start off with turning this over for a couple of slides here to Paul Redding, who Paul and I work closely together on a daily basis. Paul is with NEC. He is the business development manager for their control room specialty group, as well as for transportation industry. And so Paul, why don't you kind of take it from here and talk a little bit about NEC and what that means to the folks at PSA. Is he muted?
Yes, he was self-muted, so I don't think I could unmute him. Oh. He had to unmute himself.
I'll give him just a second here, and then I'll kind of step in and pinch hit for him.
Yeah, I can't unmute them if
Paul,
they
you there?
self-mute them.
He may be talking and we can't hear him. Yeah, that's fine. If he jumps in, I'll stop. But basically, what he would want to say, I think, would be this, and that is that NEC. I know NEC from many years being in the AV industry, and I can tell you that NEC is an icon in the audio-visual industry. They are absolutely a market leader, highly respected and recognized for their advancements in product, as well as the way they go to market and treat their integrators and end user customers. So, when I say they're a global leader, they absolutely are a global leader. But I think they have, compared to other video wall providers in the market, they have unmatched product depth that a lot of companies don't have. Products that are very applicable in security operations centers that range from your traditional big video wall with LCD panels on it to front projection solutions in some case could be the right fit, or even the newer direct view LED displays. Some of you may be familiar with that. And their products are, rated for mission critical environments 24/7. They're ideally suited for SOCs and desktop monitors too, because in these environments, obviously there are console furniture with operators sitting at desks that are analysts, and you're going to have your monitors there. Additionally, I might say that NEC has made a pledge internally and to us that they are going to do some focusing of marketing resources, trade shows, outreach to integrators and users, as we are in the control room market, which includes a lot of SOCs. And so that focus on command and control could benefit the folks at PSA. Again, their products are used in 24/7 operation centers. Some of the highlights of their products would be that they build their products to withstand heat, so to dissipate heat, so that the LCDs last longer. And they do that through using a lot more steel rather than plastic, which a lot of the other competitors use. They also have built-in...
Robert, I think I figured my thing out. I wasn't muted on my phone, but I was muted on the side there. I apologize about that. But thank you for your explanation. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Do you want to
sorry about that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll just take a step back. You've kind of covered that whole slide for me already, but what I'd like to kind of say is we're so excited about this partnership too, because we've had a great partnership with USAV throughout the time, and are really, really excited about doing this with the PSA group. And Chris Feldman, who's on the phone too, I believe also, he's the product manager for this category, and we're just extremely excited to kind of get this thing going. But to Robert's extent, he's kind of gone over this slide, and I don't want to completely go over it. But just talking about commercial grade and consumer grade products is one thing, along with really that we have put a lot of resources into this to be a solutions providers for you guys. And we have a technical team here that's here to back you up, to help you spec this out and make this a solution that you guys can sell, but we can help you on the back end.
Is that it?
Yeah, if we want to go on to the next screen, I think that's good. There's a couple of the other things that we kind of talked about that I wanted to touch in is our built-in OPS system that Robert kind of will explain later on. But the OPS system really allows for a built-on computer inboard, and you'll kind of see that as he goes through the infrastructure and why that's so important in this, along with our Naviset administrator, which allows us to monitor all these screens. And the real thing behind this is our first take, as we'll get on as we move on, is that really looking at a consumer grade monitor versus a commercial grade that we are. So, but if we want to go on to the next slide, that would be great.
That is the second slide.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it there. Okay, perfect. So then if we get into that, the only other thing that I kind of want to leave you with for your customers is our warranty. Some of our screens are now moving to a 5-year warranty. which we can all upgrade to that warranty as we move on forward. So with that being said, I'll let Robert take over in the next slides and come in at the time. And sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're glad we got the audio fixed there. So real quick, just a little bit about Hyperwall. Hyperwall has been in business now for about 9 years. We have over 1,000 installations in 62 countries around the world in some of the most demanding environments. They could be government, military. They are also state, local. They're universities. They could be corporate, transportation, you name it. The markets are out there. But we seem to do quite a bit. And I would say 50% or slightly more than that in security operations, 911, emergency management, law enforcement. And so that's why we're here today. We think we can bring value to you guys in terms of some of the projects that we get pulled into that we might want to pull you into, as well as we need folks to help fulfill some of the the security operations side of things. We're a unique solution in the marketplace, and you'll see as we go through some slides is that our solution has taken the complexity, if you will, out of the traditional solution that has been around for many, many years, and I'm going to talk about that in detail. But that's one reason that I came over to Hyperwall. I had been with an audiovisual integrator in Atlanta for 17 years, and many of you may have heard the company Technical Innovation that was acquired by Diversified. But I was, again, about 12 years in the mission critical side of their business, and I started selling Hyperwall, and a customer introduced me to Hyperwall, and the next thing I know, I'm selling 3 or 4 of the solutions fairly quickly, and I'm able to turn the project around a lot quicker than some of the other solutions. It was easier to design around and get implemented, and et cetera. And so I decided that it was time for me to move on and come over to Hyperwall. So I've been at Hyperwall for just over a year. And so when I talk about this, I can tell you from firsthand experience about the pros and cons of other solutions as well as the Hyperwall solution, because there's no perfect solution out there for every project. There's some that will be good for this and not so good for that. But I think the Hyperwall platform, as you'll see in a few minutes, is well suited for a lot of different verticals out there. So the partnership, and Chris may want to talk a little bit to this as well, but basically NEC and Hyperwall have already had a partnership for about 6 or 7 years now, where it's been more casual in the past. We've attended a few trade shows together, done several projects together over the years, and probably more than several, probably a few dozen projects. And so that relationship already was in place, and we formalized a relationship with them about 6 months ago, where we're going to be more deliberate at how we go to market together and do shows together and promote our products together, even blending in some of our technologies. So NEC had a relationship with USAV, and obviously now USAV and PSA are one and the same, or part of the same family of members and the company. So we're going to be making available all of our solutions for video walls, for security operations centers through that relationship there. And I'm assuming that if there are questions about how that relationship works, that you'd be able to reach out to Chris and find out more about that. And I'll reiterate what Paul said, that we're very excited to be a part of this, and many thanks to Chris. Chris has worked real hard to get us to where we are today, so kudos to you, Chris. What does this mean to you guys? So I kind of look at it from a variety of different ways, and that is, some of you guys may have done some video walls in the past and have some providers, some manufacturers that you've worked with, and so we may be offering you a different type of solution to consider. Others may not have ever really done many video walls, and this is all a new thing to them. So regardless to me of which category you fall into, what you need to know is you're going to have access to a very, very advanced technology, but something that's pretty simple to understand and implement, as well as some subject matter experts, like I said earlier, that if you need some help and guidance on what would be the right type of video wall or monitor to put in this room, and this is the type of content we're going to put up there in addition to video. If you have questions about installation practices or any sales support, that you're going to have that through this relationship. And I stated earlier also that we're going to do ongoing workshops and training for both sales and technical folks. At the end of the day, you know, what this means to you is what it means to everybody. We want to ramp up our revenues and everybody to make some additional money at this and be able to grow their businesses, right? So that's the ultimate goal with this partnership. So let's get into the meat of it. Talk a little bit about some video wall technologies that are out there, and I split it up into a couple of different categories: primary and secondary. So the primary, you'll see there are video wall cubes, LED, LCD, and flat panel displays, and then the secondary would be front projection. So we'll start at the top, and that's video cubes. The reason I show this, NEC does not make a video cube like this, but I have to show this because it is one of the technologies in the marketplace, and there are some pros and cons. This has a very limited application, and I want you to know it from just educational. Video cubes is really where the control room marketplace started about 25 years ago, and there are some manufacturers of this type technology in the marketplace that really did well with it when this was the only thing around. But now that LCD flat panels have come to the place that they are, and direct view LED is starting to make some inroads into the marketplace, this technology is becoming a lot less relevant. Not saying it's going away, but I would say that the manufacturers of this technology, who also now sell some of the products that we would compete with them on, this type of product right here is probably only about 25% of their business today. And there are many reasons why, one of which is the expense of this. If you can see, I'm moving my mouse over one of these video cubes, there's an actual projector, or a projection engine as it's called, inside this cube with a mirror that the light bounces off to create the image on the back of this screen. This one unit here, depending on the diagonal size of that screen, could range from $15,000 to $35,000 for that one unit. So if you start looking at a 4x2, and that's how we typically configure these, is a cross and then down. So a 4x2 of that can get really expensive very quickly. Not to mention the fact that the height of this, if you go from the base where it's sitting on the floor to the top, is probably close to 8 feet tall, and that's a big system right there. So it used to be, like I said, where this technology was really the only thing out there, so that's what people bought, and a lot of it was sold. Today, not so many, but there are applications in power utility, for example, in their control rooms, not security operations, but mainly in their control rooms where they monitor the power grid and the SCADA systems. This is still a relevant technology. There are some transportation environments that also utilize this technology still, but for the most part, it's going to be going away. Again, just perspective, right? Let me move on to the next one. Another technology, you guys, from a video wall perspective, is the direct view LED. Direct view LED, most commonly, you've seen it out there when you go to a stadium, see the big LED screens up there with a playback of the play that just happened, or you go to the mall or some other concert venue, you see this type of technology. It's called direct view LED. What is interesting about direct view LED and its application to a security operations center is that if you see these, I hope you guys can see this, all these fine little dots on here, it looks like if you're looking at a picture of it in a newspaper up close. Each one of those is a pixel, basically. It's an LED node, and in that, these particular, they call these pixel pitches, and so the pitch of this means that up until, let's say, the last year and a half to 2 years, the pitch on this was not small enough that it would have any kind of application inside a building, other than it being a huge mall or a convention center or something like that, because it was too grainy. Well, the technology has advanced so much that pixel pitch now is right about 1 millimeter, maybe even slightly less than that. And we're getting into a very interesting area here where that pixel pitch now is so small that it creates so much definition and resolution on this panel. And if you join these panels together, by the way, these, I think, maybe, you know, a foot or 18 inches by 18 inches. So you'd put all these together to make a big video wall. But what's interesting is that the pixel pitch is getting so small now that the clarity and the resolution is much higher. And what that means is that the application for that to be used in a lot of other areas of entertainment or business or in control rooms, security ops centers, is becoming much more prevalent. I don't think that it's quite there yet. I think that it's well on its way, and there will be some customers that have the budget because it is a very expensive technology, because it is a newer technology. But I think that in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, this will be a force to be reckoned with because of the trends and where things are going. The other consideration with this type of technology, if you were to look at direct view LED, is that the brightness of these LED screens is extremely bright because a lot of this technology is designed for very large environments, and a lot of it was designed for outdoor use. Now you can tone down the brightness, and in effect, when you do that, you increase the life of the unit. So there are some things that you can do if it was something that you had to do today and the customer wanted LED. So point being, this is a technology that's not widely used today. It is starting to gain some traction, but at the end of the day, I think we're still a little ways away for it to be adopted by a lot of people because of price and because of the resolution that is on that, or the lack thereof.
And thank you for that. And Chris, do I have you on? Do I have you not muted?
No.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Yep. The only thing I'd like you to just talk to a second about, Chris, if you could, is the longevity and the life of that, because we are definitely going down this route of direct view LED, and just kind of the life of that product would be kind of an interesting thing, I think, for this group to understand too.
Okay, I don't have time to go into a lot of it, but a lot of the lifetime of the LED has to do with its pixel pitch as well as the brightness that you run it at. So as Robert mentioned earlier, as you turn this brightness down to make it more palatable in that type of an environment, you can actually extend the life of an LED beyond its normal operational range. Actually, much like you can do with even our own screens or projectors, right? So you turn the brightness down, you extend the life of the display device. So there's a number of options that are available now, especially when you're looking at the direct view LED. Just the serviceability and the modular nature of those have really brought that type of product into new types of spaces, such as command and control. But right now, they are a little cost prohibitive, but there are going to be applications out there where they will have that kind of budget, and they'll be able to utilize that very high pixel density that we're capable of doing now with the direct LED.
Thanks, Chris. And I for the group, just so you know who Chris Feldman is, I was muted before. I was having my own technical difficulties. I apologize about that when Robert was going through our screen. Chris is our product manager in the kind of control room space and accessory space for us at NEC. So he'll be a great resource for you, and I can get his contact information out after this call too. So sorry to disrupt you there, Robert, but just wanted to get Chris's opinion on that as well.
Oh, no problem. Chime in when you need to. I think that was certainly something that needed to be said, so no problem. No problem. So as we move on, the third technology in this primary group would be what is most commonly used today, that has really kind of taken over the market and displaced the video cubes, if you will, in the marketplace, and that is your flat panel LCD displays. And what's real interesting is that now, it used to be a couple years ago that the seam between these flat panels was still pretty wide, so that it blocked off some of the content that might be hidden behind it, and it certainly looked like a big grid up on the front of the wall. Well, today, with the advances of the technology, they've been able to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but they've been able to get the seams, when you butt these two things up next to each other, up to about 1.8 millimeters, which, let me do my math here. So that's about 1/8 of an inch, or just less than 1/8 of an inch. That's pretty darn thin for that mullion.
Right,
which,
Robert, just to interrupt you, That's not 1.8 each. That's 0.9 each, right? So that's when they're pushed up together.
Yeah, that's right. It's 0.8 when they're pushed up next to each other, and so that really makes this an interesting solution. When folks were thinking that these bezels can't get any thinner, here we are, they're making them thinner, right? So maybe in the future they're going to get even thinner. I don't know. That's up to all these engineers and all. But when you start talking about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch thick, that's almost seamless. And depending on the content you have on the screen, can make it somewhat seamless. So, but this is the technology that is most widely used in security operations, network operations, and in fact, most of the control rooms that are being built today. And it's very thin, so the profile from the front of the screen to the back where it actually mounts to a wall, many of you with experience with this, you know that that's only several inches and not feet like a video cube. And so it is really attractive for a customer when they're mounting this. It's a very thin profile product. It weighs a lot less than these big video cubes, so from a weight perspective, it's good. Now, it does require backing material on the wall if you're doing a pretty big wall to make sure that the wall is structurally sound. You don't want to just mount this to sheetrock. But anyway, so flat panel LCD technology is really the technology that we're using today, and there are a variety of different sizes: 46-inch diagonal screens, 55-inch diagonal screens, and a few different brightness levels of products. So I would look to NEC in the future when you have questions about what's the right one to use for a particular project. You could reach out to NEC, and they could certainly direct you to that end.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you can talk to it a little bit. You may or may not need that brightness, but if you turn the brightness down, you're going to get a longer life, and we can put a longer warranty on it for you. So those are some of the kind of things that we can talk about helping your customers, being that true solution provider for them.
So the secondary, and I put it in a secondary category, is because front projection is not the ideal type of display device to use in a 24/7 mission critical environment. However, I say that with caution because that's the way it used to be. Projectors were not designed and rated because they utilized lamps to be used in 24/7 operation centers. So typically you would find a projector like this possibly in an emergency operation center for a county or city, where they don't need it on 24/7. They would turn it on when they have a crisis going on, like a hurricane, and then when the event is over, they turn it off and it doesn't get used again for another month or two. In those environments, that type of technology is quite well suited. Well, what's interesting about today is that a lot of these are no longer powered by lamps or bulbs. They're powered by other means, and I can let Chris or you, Paul, if you want to talk a little bit more about the laser phosphor or some of the other technology.
Yeah, Chris, can I defer that to you to just talk a little bit of the technology in a high over level real quick?
Yeah, I mean, without going into too much detail, the laser phosphor technology that we have in the projectors now allow for far more flexibility with use of the projector than you initially had. You have much more aggressive angles, such as having them pointing straight down or pointing straight up, that type of thing. There are, a lot of them will run for extended periods of time and do not require maintenance. So projection technology has really come a long way to allow it to be used not only in a space like command and control, but also within signage itself. And our larger projectors also have the OPS slot that we mentioned earlier, which is a computing standard by Intel that accepts a small computer that actually goes into the display itself, so you don't have to run any power, video, or control cables. Everything is internally from the computer directly to the projector.
Yeah, that's perfect. And they're rated 24/7, right, Chris? A lot of these laser phosphor?
Some of them, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Johnny, to piggyback on that, Chris, we have two different models, and one is 24/7, one is 18 hours. But but the life expectancy is 5 to 6 times what it used to be.
Yeah, and that's real important. So the point here is that the front projection ceiling mounted projectors were not in the past very well suited for very many applications in command and control, but they are becoming more relevant today because of the changes and getting away from the lamp-based systems. So don't discount it, but I would say it might not be the first go-to depending on the requirements of the customer.
Yeah, the laser phosphors, we expect you to get at least 20,000 hours out of the light engine. So. Yeah,
that's a lot.
And I guess to Robert and Chris's point, it could be a secondary ad. I mean, something that you need 24/7 might not be the case, but something that you need to turn on once an event happens. It's a great solution for that.
Yeah. Yeah, most security ops centers are going to be running 24/7 unless it's just a very small one. So I think, you know, honestly, this is the technology folks would want to look at. Now, let me say this too. So NEC, you know, we talked about this earlier. NEC has a very deep field of products. So it's not just video walls. I find that in a lot of security operations centers, they may have a video wall that could be, you know, like a 3x2, so 6 panels total, or it could be something like this, and flanking the left and the right side of the video wall are individual 70 or 80-inch, you know, monitors, flat panels that just carry different type of content. And a lot of times they do that because they don't want to use the main video wall real estate for like a news and weather feed. They'll just put it on the left and right monitors. So, you know, as well as I've found solutions where they don't even use a video wall. They'll use 6 or 8 large format, you know, LCD monitors, and they'll just put them all in a row, not next to each other where they're trying to create a video wall. There may be a space, and that's just the way they want it, and they want different information going to different monitors. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, at the end of the day, it isn't like this is the right thing to do in every case. We have to do it on a case-by-case basis, because I don't think some applications, they may not need a video wall, and let's not try and sell them something that they don't want or need. So we just have to ask a lot of questions about how they're going to use their content and what's the room like, and, you know, what's their budget, and a lot of different questions that we're going to be asking, no different than you'd ask about other products that you sell.
No, so, and I guess if I can recap in one sentence, and I'll put it back to you, Robert, because I was muted before and couldn't figure out my technical difficulties before. Was what NEC has is we have all the products as a one-stop shop. We have DirectView LED, we have laser projectors, we have the video wall products, we have UHD products if you need those, we have desktop monitors. So it is a one-stop shop for your customer to come get everything they need for the control room space. And with that, I'll leave it and turn it back to you guys.
Yep. No, feel free to chime in. So we've now talked about the actual video walls from a 50,000-foot view. And again, I don't want you to think that today was supposed to be a deep dive in a lot of the engineering and mechanics behind what makes an LCD panel work. We can certainly have that in the future if that's helpful to you guys. But we just wanted to provide you with, you know, kind of an overview of what are these technologies, which ones are used the most, maybe a few of the pros and cons of each of these technologies. And so we'll do the same for the video wall content management piece of this when it comes to a security ops center. And so what that means is, you know, the content that gets to the video wall, there are a variety of ways to do that. In the past, it's been very hardware based and lots of cabling, and there are still some solutions out there today that are still very, very hardware centric with a lot of cabling, etc. And I'm not here to say that's the wrong thing in every case. I will say that it is not the trend of the future, and that anybody in 3 or 4 years from now is still offering that may not be around for too long, because customers and integrators alike are starting to ask for more advanced, simple to use, easier solutions that are based around software and IT platforms rather than sort of proprietary hardware solutions that are very unique to one specific manufacturer. So that kind of being said, I want to walk you through the 2 most common approaches, if you will, to managing the content that comes out of the source, be it a PC, laptop, security camera, you know, a CNN feed from Comcast or whatever, and how does that get to the video wall? And in the past, and even today, like I said, there's still a lot of the competitors in the marketplace that utilize a proprietary hardware device called a controller or processor. They look different. This is a couple examples of different ones. They're usually big boxes that are pretty heavy, pretty big, to take up several rack units, and they sit in the rack, and there's a lot of cabling goes to that directly to the wall. And what makes all of this work is a software interface that is a secondary piece of equipment, just sits on a PC, but that connected to the processor is very much like a control system, allows this to do the work of routing these sources anywhere on the wall that they want, resizing and creating a virtual desktop or workspace up here. Again, this is the way it's been done for a long, long time. And yes, these systems are IP network based, but they still are IP network based with proprietary hardware from specific manufacturers that manufacturer has to support. The second option that is in the marketplace, which is more of the Hyperwall option, and we're finding that there's a lot of interest in this approach, and it's because it's a very straightforward, very easy and simplistic solution, is we eliminate, I'm going to go back, we eliminate this box entirely. The controller processor, which in many cases can be a very expensive piece of equipment starting out for small systems, $15,000 to $20,000. I've seen them go up on big projects to $75,000, $80,000. And then if you need redundancy, you buy a second one to have a second system. So then again, the cost continues to go up. So the network software-based solution, what it does is there is no proprietary hardware. In the case of Hyperwall and or a software approach like we have, we're using COTS, common off-the-shelf PC. So a customer or an integrator may have a preferred brand that could be HP, Dell, IBM, or whatever that you want to use. So you can use that PC, just meets our standard specifications. There's nothing really overly beefy about the PC that you would want to have as a specification, and we can get you specifications. There's actually a portal on our website that if you guys are interested to get a login, we can get you passwords and a login so that you can find out all the specs and things that you need. But we use just regular IT hardware. So if you look at this diagram, you see there's just a standard PC that our software sits on that PC. Through Ethernet cabling, we're hooked up to a gigabit switch or a network switch, which ingests whatever the sources are, no different than what the other solution does. We just do it in a different way. And then through our software, we're able to control the routing of these through the network switch to the display, move the content around, resize it, have it do everything that any other solution does. And we do that more efficiently and at a lower cost. So we were talking about OPSs. Here's a picture of the slot with an OPS being pulled out or pushed in. Each of these monitors has an OPS on it, which is receiving a license from the Hyperwall software that allows it to receive, you can call it a decoder, I guess, that allows it to receive the content that's being driven from this PC. Best way for me to describe the differences in a proprietary hardware solution, which again is still available out there, and what is kind of the new technology and where our industry is going, which is doing all that processing that was done in the hardware side with this big box, is now we're able to do it through a little box that you buy with software. The big difference for me is, and the way to explain it is, I don't know if you noticed this little airplane here and this airplane right here. You may have picked up on it. If you didn't, let me explain it to you. So the way I look at this thing is that this bomber from the 50s is an example of sort of maybe a proprietary hardware solution that has built around a hardware processor controller. And yes, it can deliver a powerful payload and do some real damage if it drops bombs on somebody. But it does so with dated, costly, and very inefficient delivery system. But if you look at software utilizing a network, it's a very different type of application. It's a technology that allows the delivery to be more agile, to work with, more efficient and more cost effective. So to me, when I was kind of thinking about how would I visualize the difference in these two systems, this was the best way for me to do it. It's kind of a little cutesy, sorry about that, but I felt like it was pretty effective. If you're just looking at two pictures of this, yeah, you could buy this and yeah, it'll do the job for you, but it's kind of outdated and eventually it's going to just be out of service. Well, it's out of service now, this in this picture, but eventually these hardware processors are not going to be around. They're going to see their sunset in the not too distant future. And our customers, who are, a lot of our customers are in IT, they're in the network side of the enterprise. They want software and IT related technologies because that's what they're familiar with. They're not familiar with AV technologies and specialty proprietary products that someone else has to maintain. They'd like to be able to take on some element of a break fix if it fails, or be able to troubleshoot it easier because they know IT. And so that's why we're having the success that we're having in the market with our solution. So that's just a little bit about the content management side of it. So we've covered now what the relationship is about. We've covered what it means to you guys, and we've covered some of the video wall technologies, and now some of how do I get the content that I have, whether it's a PC, cameras, or whatever, how do I get that to the wall, which is your content management system. And so that all being said, the last thing I want to cover, and we're coming up on being on this call now for 50 minutes and time flies. I don't want to take too much of your time on this first call. Again, this is an introduction to, I'd like maybe another 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up for some questions, and we'll do many more of these in the future. And then, you know, I want you guys to know that we're available. We're a phone call, email away. If you guys have any type of questions, we're here to help. You can, and you'll have contact information at the end. But one of the things when I was an integrator that I ran across most was, you know, how do you select the right video wall, and what are some of the things, you know, the 50,000 foot view do I need to be considering to make sure that I have the right product, it's installed in the right place, you know, and everybody's happy. Well, obviously you want to know what the type of technology is to make sure that the content you're going to put up there is the right type. You'll want to know, you know, the right kind of content management system, and you know, the console furniture. The console furniture is very important, and I'll go into that in a minute. We don't sell that kind of product. There are a lot of people out there that sell, you know, command and control consoles. Winstead is a partner of ours, and we'd encourage you, if you don't know who they are and you need that, you can work with those guys and probably fulfill some requirements there. But it's the secondary ecosystem items here that get you in trouble or makes a project successful. Let me explain very quickly why. Because you need to know
Robert,
the ceiling.
Just stop you one quick second there, just to interject that for the guys on there, is that's what NEC is putting together, right? Is we're putting together a whole team of people that we can get you in contact with, along with Hyperwall, to make these projects successful. That we can get all the partners to make you look great in front of your customer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point, and thank you for adding that, Paul. So yeah, these secondary ecosystems, I call them, starting with ceilings and the lighting, and I'll go down the list very quickly, but these impact your project. These impact how happy your customer is going to be, and here's why. So the ceiling height, as you see here, in a lot of rooms we have an 8-foot or a 9-foot ceiling in a lot of spaces that we work in, and it's a grid ceiling with, you know, fluorescent or incandescent lights in it. And you know, if you think that you, so if you're planning this and you have a 9-foot ceiling, which is actually just under 9 feet, it's just a little over 8 feet if you do the actual measurements, and you want to do a 6 or a 4 or 3 by 3 type video wall here, you're not going to be able to do it. because the sill height, this height right here, is going to be way down here, and nobody will be able to see the bottom of the screen. So you need to kind of be thinking ahead. What is my ceiling height in the room? What is the construction of the ceiling? So I know that if they're doing any renovation, there's a possibility we could raise the ceiling or parts of the ceiling and get creative with the size of the video wall. Because there's nothing worse than a customer saying, "Oh, I want a 5x3 video wall with the biggest thing I can put in here." And you go, "Okay, I'll sell you that all day long." And you figure out, well, I can't do that without the bottom of the screens being hidden down here. So you need to be thinking about this ahead of time. The ideal height of the bottom of that screen off of the floor should be around 50 inches. And so you'll see very quickly, if you're working with a 9-foot ceiling, that you don't have a whole lot of room up here to work with. You could probably get a 3, 4, 5, or 6 wide by 2 high in a room like that, so that you can still have the bottom of the screen that high. Why do you want the bottom of the screen that high? Oh, I can see a lot of hands raising. But I can't pick you because I can't see you. So the reason you want to do that is, see these monitors right here? So the top of that monitor it usually is about 48 inches off the finished floor. And then the average height of somebody sitting in that seat, if we just take the average height of people, is about 50 inches. So when you do the sight lines of where can this person in the back of the room see, you start doing the math, and there is math involved in this. This is very scientific if you want to take it down that road. And honestly, customers get very impressed when you do. I was able to sell a lot of systems to customers by taking them through and walking them through stuff like this and how I was going to help them with their room. Even if it wasn't new construction, it was an existing room, which is actually even more important, because then they know you're kind of thinking ahead and thinking this project through. But you've got to figure all this stuff out to make sure that this guy in the back of the room can see the bottom of those screens, because those monitors, if you don't do it right, those monitors will quickly block parts of the bottom of that screen. There's nothing more aggravating than getting this installed and this guy sitting down on his first day that this is up and going, "Hey, I can only see half of the bottom screen." That's not a good thing. So that's one thing about ceiling heights. The lighting systems are very important too, because even though LCD and a lot of the technologies today are very high brightness, high lumen, etc., still, if you have a lot of incandescent lights in the ceiling that are zoned up in the front of the room, it's going to affect the brightness and the screens. So you just need to be asking questions about and looking in the ceiling to see what's there, to see if the lights in the front of the room can be zoned separately, if they're not already zoned separately, so they have their own switch to be dimmed or turned off, while you can leave the rest of the lights in the room on. There are other considerations in terms of the lighting and placement and etc. But that's the basics that you'll need to know about lighting that can help you out in the project. Life safety systems. I have a little story about life safety systems. As all of you probably are aware of, life safety is typically your sprinkler systems. Well, at least that's what I refer to, because that's what I work with in these security ops centers. And there are sprinkler systems that are in the ceiling, and some of them are water-based and some of them are gas-based and different things. I don't even remember all the names of what they have out there. Used to have halogen. I don't even think halogen's used much anymore. But anyway, the story I have is, and I'll go back to a slide here real quick if you don't mind. This technology right here, very costly. I installed in a customer's facility in Miami. This is about 10 years ago. And they had I forget if it was halogen or some type of gas life safety fire suppression system in the ceilings. And this was new construction. Their architect and their contractor had planned to put the nozzles literally inches away from the screens. It was a bigger wall than this. It was about 5 or 6 wide by 3 tall. And I encouraged them that they should try to move those back at least 1 foot to 2 feet away from the screens if code would let them. And they said code would let them, but they said they weren't going to do it because it was going to cost them a few $1,000s to do that, because it was already in place. So, fast forward 6 months, and what happens? I don't know what happened to do it, but the system went off and damaged the screens on the front of those monitors. And it cost them about $15,000 to replace the screens on 3 of those systems. And so, valuable lesson learned there to consider life safety. Where are the sprinklers or the nozzles? Are they very close to any of these panels? Because if they are, they could seriously damage the panels, and not be a real happy customer that somebody didn't alert them to that. So again, little things in this ecosystem that could affect the overall operation of a security ops center and help your customer to be happy at the end. Another big one is I find that a lot of architects when I work with and end users don't understand, the on-off axis viewing angles and optimal viewing distances, and you have to take that into account as how far away from the screens is somebody going to be, and how relevant is that content that they can read it or see it in any detail that's going to be, worth them having a video wall. Happy to sell people video walls, but I'm not happy to sell people video walls that when they get it, they say, I can't really tell what's up on the video wall, I'm too far back. Well, we as people that sell this type of technology should have kind of walked them through that. But that's real important to know who really needs to see this information. And I tell you what I find a lot of times is that the folks in the front of the room are the folks that really need to be able to read and tell what the content is. The people in the back, most of the time, don't really need to see the details of what's up there. They need to see what the details are more on their computers. But again, very important to talk. Raised flooring is an important consideration too, because if you have a raised floor platform like in this picture, then that could help you with your sight lines and et cetera, and running cable to and from any of the PCs, et cetera. And then last thing I want to highlight, again, this is all 50,000, but I could talk for hours on this stuff, but are the mounting systems. So if you're in an existing building, you're going to want to make sure you have backing and reinforcement on the studs or on that wall that would allow you to support the weight of that video wall, because I have seen a contractor put a fairly large video wall mounted to the metal studs and some of the sheetrock on a wall, and it wasn't up there very long, and it started to pull back away from the wall, and that's not a good thing. So again, just a little tip about installations. I may be telling you guys some of the obvious things, and I'm sorry if I am, but I think this is all, again, very noteworthy and worth you hearing. So kind of with that as a conclusion here, now that I'm hitting an hour, and again, I can talk all day long about this kind of stuff, but I don't want to bore you with a lot of details today. Why don't I kind of end the day right there and open up the floor for questions, because it's, Paul and I and Chris have been doing all the talking, but you guys may have some questions that we could help answer.
I did have a couple of questions that came in. First one is, we would like to get more training on Hyperwall and video walls. How do we go about doing that?
I think that would be a question for you, Paul. How would you want to do that? Or maybe Chris would want to answer that one. I'm happy to train anybody that wants training, but I'd want to work through the appropriate channels.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah.
Robert, this is
so
Chris.
Robert, I guess, and I'll speak for Chris, is that Chris and I can definitely set it up with Robert, with these guys. Chris, I don't like when people have all the same name, but yeah, we could do a deep dive, and I guess all I would ask back is, what questions would they like, and so we can make sure that we do the training for what they want, right? I know we spoke about that when we did the USAV training up in Itasca, but yeah, just let's get some feedback from what they want, and we'll get it set up.
Hey, Robert, this is Chris Whitley. You might want to talk about, I know we were going to do a couple other webinars as follow-ons to this that are a little bit deeper dive, and then we were also talking about putting together a deep dive education program at the at our tech conference, but that's in March of 2018, so we have some time to put that together. But those are some of the things that we're thinking of for the audience. But Robert, you might want to talk about those subsequent webinars that you and I have talked about and the potential content in those.
Yeah, I'm happy to. No dates have been set, but I would say in October, November, and maybe the first part of December, as we can get some dates on the calendar that kind of meets everybody's needs. We would like to be able to provide more in-depth technical webinar that would be seeing our user interface in action. so it's actual product demo, but also going through and having one of my engineers work with the technical teams at PSA, the members, so that so you can see the architecture behind it. What are some of the questions that we get typically from end users that want to install one of these, have one of these installed? From a network perspective, it's not that complicated. Like I said, we've simplified it compared to the others out in the market, but there are some things that need to be asked on the network side, and the customer is going to ask these integrators. So that would be one. And the other, from a sales perspective, is educating some of the sales folks on a little bit deeper dive, if you will, on what I talked about today. That would be some key questions that they could ask to make sure that they're doing the right discovery, asking the right questions when they first talk to a customer on the phone, or when they're with a customer about what their requirements are, what are their objectives, and what is it they're trying to accomplish. And then, how would they answer those on the spot? I don't expect for anybody to become a subject matter expert, after taking one webinar, but certainly would like to get as much information in everybody's hands as possible about how to start the conversation and look intelligent about a few answers they could give immediately.
Okay.
So
great, thank you, Robert.
I just had another question come in kind of on that, is what about the training at Tech? Is it formal certification required?
Robert, I think the question is, to paraphrase this a little bit, they're asking if there's on the security side, there's a lot more certifications than on our AV side for certain products. And so I think the question relates around that. Is there specific certification training for the Hyperwall piece and or anything from NEC, Paul, that you might want to address too? So the question will be for both of you.
Well, from the Hyperwall side, we don't have a certification program, and we don't right now. We have been asked this question before, and we're considering it. Our fear is that when somebody becomes certified, that means that there's a lot involved with what it takes to do an installation or understand a product. We are so different in terms of the lack of complexity of our product, but yet how advanced and robust we are. We hesitate to make this a quote-unquote certification, because then we're thinking that people are going to lump us into this group of a very complex product. We're so simple to use, so simple to understand, and I think when people see a deeper dive, they'll understand that piece of it. But I'm not going to rule out that we won't have it in the future, but right now we don't have it because, again, we kind of don't want to associate ourselves with being something really complex that you need certification on it.
Yeah, and I'll kind of take that question a little further, and I'll let Chris chime in after too, if he would like to. That being said, we have the resources there to help them with other partners that they can look like they're doing the install for, right? So we have certain partners, and we have certain resources at NEC and at Hyperwall that can help these partners do the install if they need to. If that's kind of where I'm figuring that question's going down, and sometimes that's not a bad idea. We have a solutions group that can help these guys put this complete solution together, and we can quote install services through a third party. Chris, if you want to elaborate on that at all, I'd love if you would.
Yeah, one of the things I actually want to highlight with the pairing of NEC and Hyperwall, in the AV space, whether it's command and control or any other AV space out there, the IT departments and the AV departments have always kind of been at odds with one another. The AV guys don't want to deal with the IT guys because it's too complicated, and the IT guys don't like dealing with the AV guys because they have no control over what they're doing. So by pairing up with NEC and Hyperwall to put these systems together, it's a system, and I don't like using this word hybrid, but it's a system that really kind of melds the two together. So you have a system that will handle an AV job, but also lives in the IT world. And when you start speaking that language, it really helps you close sales, because what happens is everybody gets the warm fuzzies about what we're putting together here. As Robert was mentioning with the installation of the product, there's not a lot of rocket science involved. It's essentially just getting a bunch of computers talking to one another, which isn't hard. I mean, with TCP and everything else, it's fairly straightforward to do. It doesn't take a lot of effort nowadays to do that. Pairing it with our screens and OPS makes it even simpler. And the fact that this product uses, readily available, desktop boxes, they can either build their own control nodes and whatever else in-house, or what they could do is they could standardize on what NEC is offering. So as Paul mentioned earlier, we can do an entire turnkey. And basically, what I'm trying to kind of sum up and say here is that the system itself is a very elegant design solution that we can actually, when we work together, it makes it fairly painless for the customer to implement. So, as you have these customers available and they want to talk about these, please, engage with NEC and engage with Hyperwall as well. What we can do is we can get you on WebExes, so webinars. We can do conference calls. Depending on the size, we have a lot of reps that are remote, so we can actually do site visits, that type of thing. We've done demos before. We have a lot of resources available to help you basically sell this to your customer. Also, as Robert mentioned, we are working together to have these at shows together. We're going to have it at our New York Showcase, which is coming up in late October, early November. We'll have it at DSE. We'll have it at Infocom. It's a product pairing that is very beneficial to both of us, and we're hoping that it's beneficial for you to offer to your customers. So.
And this is Danielle, Marketing Manager for NEC. What I wanted to add to what Paul and Chris said is that at the Tech Summit or event next year, NEC also does have what is called CTS accredited courses. If you're familiar at all with Infocom, and as you become more familiar with NEC and USAV, you might get to know Infocom organization a little bit better. But we offer courses that kind of help add to your experience, if you will, your branding of your own organization as an integrator on everything from our laser projection technology to video walls to how to choose the correct display technology to begin with. And so we can look at offering those types of courses next year as well, so you can become even more knowledgeable and ultimately certified as it stands with Infocom within our product solutions, making you, the expert, so to speak, when talking to your customers.
All right. Well, I have one last question. First off, I do know that some people were wondering if you were going to be at As Is, but also the actual question was, who do I need to talk to become a Hyperwall reseller?
Oh, wow. That would be a question, I think, for Paul, on your side, or maybe Chris.
Yeah, Chris, I guess I would defer to that. I mean, as part of the USAV group, we would like everybody to be
sure,
Hyperwall person. I'll let you address that.
Okay. So this is Chris Whitley with. So for those on the call, the security side, we're running everything through USAV. You actually purchase the products direct. So any NEC or Hyperwall purchases would go through NEC. NEC and Hyperwall are tied together. If those of you that haven't seen some of the communication or talked to Tim or Diana, your prospective reps in your territory, if you reach out to them, they can get you in touch with us, and we can start the process if you have a need to get set up reselling this stuff. Or you can call me directly. Robert, I think the last thing was, I know you had mentioned being at As Is. I don't think you guys are exhibiting, but you're probably going to be there. So I wanted to throw out there, if you are still going to be there, for anybody that's on this call, if they want to get in touch with you and get into it a little bit more, they can. But are you going to be at As Is?
Yes, I do plan on being at As Is, and I would be happy to meet with anybody wants to sit down for a few minutes over breakfast, cup of coffee, or just somewhere on the floor. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks. So everybody, Robert's information's obviously on this last slide here. So if you want to reach out to him at As Is, please do so.
Yeah, and that does look like all the questions that we did have for today. If you want to review this presentation again or want to pass it along, we will have a recorded version of it posted soon. You can visit psasecurity.com/education. Also, look for future trainings and a deeper dive on this topic at PSA Tech. Thank you very much to Robert Cameron, Paul Redding. Their contact information is here for if you have any other questions or wanted to reach out to them. Please visit our website, that's psasecurity.com, to be sure that you're learning all that PSA Security Network has to offer. On our homepage, you can access future webinar events, this recording, educational offerings, and business solutions. This will conclude today's presentation. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.